Okay, we are up to Pirke, hey, chapter 5, Mishnah Yud Chet, Mishnah 18. Today's Life Reimagined Pirke Abot. Let's also dedicate Lilu Nishmat Yosef ben Simcha alav Shalom by his daughter Gila Surur, and as well as dedicated in celebration of the birthday of Tanaz Mafar. May Hashem bless her with a long and fulfilled life, good health, happiness, and endless simachot by her husband Sina Mafar. It's a very long birthday. We're loving it. Baruch Hashem. You should keep having your birthday. We should keep sponsoring classes. Everybody wins. This is a fantastic proposition. Okay, let's begin. Kol ha-mizakeh et harabim. Anyone who is mizakeh. What does the word mizakeh mean? Where does that come from? It comes from the word zechut. Mizakeh is the hif'il of zechut. It's causing someone else to have zechut. So what would be examples of a mizakeh et harabim? What would be examples?
Encouraging people to come to class.
Excellent, encouraging people to come to class. Very good. Is giving tzedakah mizakeh et harabim? No. Encouraging other people to give tzedakah mizakeh et harabim. Interestingly enough, you went up to the Torah, you said Shemit Nadev $101 to the Bet HaKnesset, you gave $100 to the shul, you were not mizakeh et harabim. Well, maybe you were, because anyway it's going to the shul. But let's say you gave it to an individual, right? To the synagogue's chesed fund, you were not mizakeh et harabim, but the fact that it was said out loud, and the guy who goes up to the Torah after you says, oh, that's a nice idea. $101 into the chesed fund, that's mizakeh et harabim. Anything which you cause the Rabbim, the community, the masses, the many, to have a zechut, says the Mishnah something wild. En het ba al yado. A sin does not come through that person's hand. Now, I want to say that I am proof that this Mishnah is not true. Baraminan. I am mizakeh et harabim. I teach classes, I run a synagogue, I do projects. At the same time, it would be the biggest joke in the world to say that I never sinned in my life. Or I never sinned since I became a rabbi. Or I never sinned since yesterday, right? Everybody sins, all the time. So what does it mean? En chet ba al yado. It doesn't stay on his hand. It should say en chet nish'ar al yado.
You won't be tempted.
Sorry?
You won't be tempted, like you won't come to your hand.
I and many others are proof that that's not the truth. What you did? You one time ran into that tzedakah campaign. Now you have no desires. You have no limitations. You have no issues in your life that your spiritual self that you need to work out. Of course there are. In fact, as we are sadly learning this past week and in scandals before it, there are many people who are mizakeh et harabim, who do great things for the community, who ultimately do and have terrible things that they perpetrate, that they visit upon others. So what does it mean, en chet ba al yado? So the cynic in me and the cynic in you is probably thinking, well, if he did a sin, you know what it does? It tells you that actually he never really was mizakeh et harabim. Like, this person is a terrible person. This person is a monster. This person is evil. Right? That's the cynic in you. You see somebody good. You see a rabbi. You see a rebbitzin. You see a community leader. You see a person of stature. Someone who's a important person in the synagogue. And now they've done a crime. You see? You know what that proves? Guy's a fake. She's a phony. I think that's incredibly naive. I think it's incredibly juvenile and immature version of the world. We're looking at this guy, terrible, the worst, in the news now. The worst abuser of children, abuser of women, horrible. That doesn't mean that the guy didn't help people in his life. It doesn't mean that. But it also doesn't mean that we whitewash what he did because of the good he did in his life. In Hebrew, there's a phrase that goes, Ze lechud v'ze lechud. Now, in that specific instance, he was using his therapy to be able to draw people in. So maybe it's a little bit more sinister, the good that he did. But there are people to whom or for whom he did good that had no negative consequences ever. You know? That's doing good for that person. Now, again, you might say that the whole reason why he had the practice and the whole reason why he was doing it, maybe, but I don't think you need to say that. People aren't only rotten, spoiled, horrible, or pristine, clean, and fluffy white with no static cling. That's just not how the world is. So the cynical pshat in the Mishnah, I don't really buy it. Mizaket Rabim, no sins. And if you see a sin, you should just know he was never really Mizaket Rabim. What? Can I ask you a question? Moshe Rabbeinu, Mizaket Rabim? Yeah. He hit the stone. Sin. Obviously not then, according to the Mishnah. Aaron HaKohen, Mizaket Rabim? Look at how much shalom he made. Golden calf. That's my point. En tzaddik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yechta means that even though he sinned, what did the pasuk call him? Called him a tzaddik. En tzaddik ba'aretz asher ya'aseh tov v'lo yechta. So it's calling the person who sinned, that's calling him a tzaddik. So what does this Mishnah mean? So, no, but it says, En chet ba'al yado. If you were mizaket rabim, the sin does not come by your hand. So I have there's many different ways of looking at this Mishnah, but I would like to share with you one of them. En chet ba'al yado doesn't mean in general. Specific to this thing. Excellent. Specific to this thing. Now I want to explain to you, I don't know how much you have opportunity to work for or in the community. To be Mizaket Rabim. I don't know. Some people have a lot of opportunity to do so. Some people have never had any opportunity to do so. But I want to share with you a deep truism of what working for the community looks like. It is incredibly rare that there is a project that is only positive. That is all pros and no cons. Very rare. And the people in this world who work in nonprofits or who engage in nonprofits, either if they are negative people, always see the cons in every single scenario, or if they are positive, can-do people, always see the pros in every scenario, neither one of which is actually looking at a realistic picture of helping the community. So let me give you an example. Tzedakah for poor people, good thing, bad thing? Obviously good thing. But maybe you're teaching poor people to rely on handouts, so they're not going to go get a job. Is that untrue? It is true. It is true. You help people with shidduchim, or you try. Good thing, bad thing. How could that be a bad thing? You make people rely on you for shidduchim. That means that they're not out there hustling, realizing that it's all on me. They think that it's the synagogue's job, or our organization's job, or the shadchan's job, or the rabbi's job to find me someone. So maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe pushing the person off the cliff to make them realize the only person who's going to take care of you is you, maybe that's the best thing you could do. Do you understand? Says the Mishnah to every person who's trying to be Mizaket Rabim, trying to bring goodness, good things, good zichuyot to the people, merit to the people, don't worry. En chet ba'al yado. Pay close attention. What did the Mishnah not say? The Mishnah did not say en chet ba. It doesn't say that if you arrange this event, no mixed dancing shall come forth from it. It does not say that because of this thing that you've done, this project, no person will learn to be reliant on the community and not have the yozma, the oomph, the uwe, to go out and get a job. It doesn't say that. It says, en chet ba al yado. This is not on you. Whatever happened that was wrong, it's not on you. You're trying to do good. You're trying mizaket rabim. Don't worry about every possible thing that could go wrong, because en chet ba al yado. Anyway, that's going to be the case. There's always going to be things that are wrong. If you didn't, then you didn't bring this person the opportunity. If you did, then you did bring the person the opportunity, but there's a side problem. Always going to be that way. You just do the best that you can, and like they say in merry old England, you sally forth. Okay? Kol ha-mizaket harabim en chet ba al yado. Worry about improving the community. Let me ask you a question. You have a rabbi. His name is Rabbi Kassin. Rabbi Kassin's walking from shul, and who does he see? He sees one of the wealthy, important business people in the community. I don't know if he was so wealthy then, but anyway, he says, where are you going? It's Shabbat. He says, Rabbi, I'm embarrassed to tell you, but I'm going to work. So he says, oh, okay. He says, why don't you come with me to shul for a little bit? We're going to pray now. And then go to work. He's like, okay, I could come late, a little late to work. Anyway, no one's there. He starts coming to the shul with the rabbi for shaharit, and then leaving in the middle of the prayers. Slowly stays to the end of the prayers. 6 months go by, the rabbi sees him again. The rabbi says, look, you're here already in the morning. It'll be so nice for your kids, for your family, if you could just have lunch with them. Go in after lunch. It's a good idea, Rabbi. Anyway, I was only getting there, and then I would go and have lunch in the city. Okay, yeah, fine. He stays home, he has lunch. Next thing is the whole day. Eventually, his only thing that's missing is Friday night, coming home early. Eventually, the rabbi comes up to him and he says, look, your business now, Baruch Hashem, has grown tremendous. Beautiful success? Yeah. He says, you could afford to take off the whole Shabbat. Hold up. Let's shift into Khan mode. Rabbi, you told him to go to work after shul? Hilul Shabbat, fired. I think maybe on some level, the Mishnah might be teaching us something very powerful. It's almost maybe perhaps challenging us to venture forth into a place of chet, to win back some of those gains from the Yetzer Hara. And if you're not in a place, if you're in a place where everything is rosy, and there's no problems, there's no issues, it's because you're not doing your job. It means you're only working with the people who are already coming for the whole of Shabbat. So that's why there's no bumps in the road. On a certain level, maybe the Mishnah is challenging us that Zikui Arabim has to happen in a place where chet ba, but not chet ba al yado, where this is not your fault. You're only improving. When people exclude those that are less religious, they're not doing so out of spite. Why are they doing that? Because they're trying to protect the sanctity of Shabbat, the sanctity of tzniut, the sanctity of kashrut. They want their children to be in an environment where everyone is on a high level. That's the idea, correct? So it's not like there's not a good reason why people do this. There is a good reason. But it's the same conversation. Pro and con. Negative and positive. Yes, there's going to be downsides. But en chet ba'aliyado, they were doing that anyway. Now they can only be getting better from their interaction with you. And on this, I will ask the cynic's question. Is it possible that if a person interacts with you on a consistent basis, who is far less connected than you, and you bring him no connection whatsoever, is it a sign that there's a deficiency in him, or is it a sign that there's a deficiency in you? How could it be that someone who's disconnected completely hangs out with you and gets no service? Doesn't even get one bar. Is that a problem in him, or is it a problem in you? I think the Mishnah is encouraging us to go out there to do. Now, of course, don't make up your own decisions. Go ask your local Orthodox rabbi about what's mutar, about what's asur, about what the right way to do it is. Ask the questions. Figure it out. Do the event in the best way you possibly can. Run the initiative if you can, in its imperfection. Make sure it's en chet ba'aliyado. It's not because of you. But at the same time, don't be afraid to do. Don't be afraid to move, to see issues in the community and step up for them. How many times have people come to us in the Beit HaKnesset and told us there's a need in the community that you're not addressing, as if, as a synagogue, you have the obligation, to do all of the jobs of the community, ranging from setting people up, to teaching people Torah, to arranging tefillot, to teaching people how to read. All is our job, by the way. Also, if people in the community, in the Jewish community, are not voting, whose job is that? It's clearly our job. And if we need to prepare food for people who need food, chesed, all the chesed, that's our job. Everything is our job. Why? Why is it our job? Why is it not our job? We in the synagogue take on a whole bunch, but which ones are you taking? In what way are you improving the community that you are a part of? We've arrived in this place where in the world and in the community, people have become 100% takers. And in many cases, 0% givers. It's not enough for you to do the event for me. If I have to pay, I feel like you work for me. But what do you mean? We paid for your dinner. You're eating your dinner. You'd have to pay for it somewhere else. No. Put abuse on the staff that are running the event. How many times has someone said to us, I'd love to help you, and then actually followed through and done the simple things? Moving the chairs, putting the stickers on the seat before the high holiday. How many times has that happened? Lots of offers, very little follow through. We should be looking for opportunities to enrich the community around us. Not to think only what the community could do for us. Continues the Mishnah and says, anyone who causes the many to sin, they don't allow him the opportunity to do teshuvah. Frightening to me that how close this is to the story in the news. How someone causes people to sin, ruins the lives of others. En maspikin biyado, they don't give him the chance. He's not given the chance to make things right, to do teshuvah. There's almost nothing worse in the Torah's eyes than machtiyat rabim. If you sin, that's normal. If you sin a lot, get better. Fix yourself. But causing other people to sin, the Torah has very little patience for that. In fact, the Mishnah says something frightening. En maspikin biyado la'asot teshuvah. You have a person who dies peacefully in their sleep. They get to do the vidui. How many times have I had to be in a room like that? Encouraging people to make phone calls, difficult phone calls that they pushed off for 30, 40, 50 years. And they call, and they give forgiveness, and they ask forgiveness. Wild. You know what they say, or how they feel when they put their head back down on the pillow after? They made things right before they went. The Pasuk says that Yaakov Avinu, before he passed away, he calls his sons around to give them beracha, to give them advice, and he does. And he sees that they're all in the right place, and he's done everything he needs to do. Vayishtahaveh, and Yaakov bows el rosh hamita, to the head of his bed. There's obviously many interpretations, but Rashi says, because mitato shelema, because his bed was whole. Everything he'd produced, all of his children, all of his offspring were gathered round. He saw them before he passed, standing together in peace. He fixed the mistakes that he might have made in treating one differently than the other. What a way to go. He sits back down in his bed, picks his legs back up, and he passes away peacefully in his sleep. En misapkin biyado la'asot teshuvah. The Torah says no. A person who causes the Rabbim to sin, he's going to be taken suddenly. Or he'll be taken with his heart still hard. Or he'll be taken where he wants to fix it, but the other person's not interested. En misapkin biyado la'asot teshuvah. Now we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu treats people midah keneged midah, the way that the sins that they do, they're punished in that measure, in that way. The reward that a person gets comes measure for measure, in the same style and in the same way that you did the mitzvah. So what are we saying here? When we say that Borei Olam en chet ba'al yado, you try to improve people, God will only consider it that people are improved. And any mistakes that came of it, those are not on you. Midah keneged midah. That's what you were trying to do. Chotel machtir tarabim. You're trying to turn people away for your own benefit, for your own honor, for your own power, your own desires, your own wealth. You're trying to do something, convince people to do the wrong thing, to get involved in a deal which is incorrect, which is wrong, which is not honest. Why? So that you could have the prestige of making this deal or get the money, the benefit from that deal. You caused others to sin. It's not a big deal. Everybody does it. This is how it works in the industry. Everybody steals. En misapkin biyado la'asot teshuvah. You didn't care about their scorecard. Bar minan, God forbid. God says, I don't care about your scorecard. I don't feel the need to make yours right or to give you that chance because you didn't care about other people's scorecard, about involving them in something like this, about tainting them with something like this. The Mishnah, as it is wont to do in Avot, now brings two iconic examples, one for each side. Moshe zacha v'zikat harabim. Moshe, he merited and he brought tremendous merit to the people. If you could imagine Moshe Rabbeinu's scorecard, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael. The great tzaddikim of generations past, especially those that implemented things that caused change in the story of the Jewish people. In Shamayim, their Olam Haba, it's like, do you know that the thing that they have in Times Square with the national debt? It's like 6,974,622,472,303. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it's just running. It's obviously not running in the ones. Right? It's and the number's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Moshe Rabbeinu, as we started in the Masechet Avot, Moshe kibel Torah Sinai. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai, and he gave it to Yehoshua, and they gave it to the Zekenim, Nevi'im, Machiknes Dagdola, Hem Ramru Shlosha Dvarim. That's how we start. And that's how the journey starts, bararam param pam. And then what happens? And then, 3,500 years later, here we are learning a Mishnah in Pirke Avot with a device in our hands that communicates with satellites in the heavens, where we will order an Uber with a touch of our finger, right? Where we could pull up the very Mishnah that we're learning now on our phones. Because all of the Torah that Moshe taught is accessible through online libraries. Most of it for free. Some of it translated even to English. In a world that looks unlike anything Moshe Rabbeinu could ever have imagined, but for the fact that he was a Navi par excellence, the best there ever was, Moshe Rabbeinu was still earning reward. Moshe zacha v'zikat harabim. Wow. I think about that a lot. What can we create? What can I build that will be bigger than me? That after I'm gone at 120, because it seems very far away, but these things sneak up on you, don't they? A minute ago I was 20, Now I'm almost going to be 44. That's it, 1/3. Gone. So I have the majority left, assuming I get 120. Geherifayid. A minute ago I was getting married. And then you have grandkids. It's what? So we should think. We should make good investments, not just in our financials, in our deeds. What can we build? What can we set up? And you should be on the prowl for this. In business, when you get a good deal? If you find something before anybody else. Bay. Yeah? So if you invest in Yahoo now, probably not going to do much for you. If you invested in Yahoo before anyone knew what Yahoo was, you'd be a billionaire. If you reinvested, obviously. Right? If you believed and invested in Facebook when no one invested in Facebook, you'd be a billionaire. If you invest in Facebook after everybody's using it, you make very little money on it because you're late to the party. Right? The stock's already very valuable. So put on a fresh set of eyes and look at our community and look at our country and look at our people and look at our world. You might want to invest in a already existing tzedakah. You might want to help in an act of chesed for something that's already set up. You know why? Because it's much easier. You could just turn up. You could schedule your appointment via flick of the, with your touch of the finger, and you turn up there exactly at the time that you said, and you leave at exactly the time that you did. Very easy, painless. Also, very little reward compared. You set up something that then grows to other people, that then continues after you move away from this mortal coil. That's an investment. So you need to be savvy investors. Zacha uzikat harabim. What could you set up? What could you put in motion? You give $5 to tzedakah, $5. If you give $5 and you send it to 100 people, and you get 100 people to give tzedakah, we'll send it each to 100 people, and you very quickly might have hundreds of thousands of mitzvot. So think. I'm not telling you to be the annoying person that that starts the chain email that nobody actually listens to, but the concept of that is not incorrect. Moshe zachahu zikat harabim. Zechut harabim talui bo. Every line of Torah we're learning a line of Torah. One for me, one for him. Could you believe that? 3,500 years, trillions of people probably over the history of time. Maybe I'm overestimating, but all the Jews forever, all the Christians, all the Muslims that learned elements that their religion, the good things that their religions are based on, which come from Judaism, all Moshe's. Zechut harabim talui bo. You brought one person back to Judaism, they start a Jewish family. How'd you do that? Nothing. You invited them Shabbat, dinners. You connected them back to Judaism. They have a family, they have children. Their children have children, their children have children, their children have children. All of them, they do something Jewish. All of those mitzvot. One for me, one for you. That's not hard, is that? To reach out to someone who maybe is not so connected and to decide, I'm going to invite them for Shabbat dinners. I'm going to start setting them up with Shabbat dinners. I'll maybe offer to learn with them as a chavruta, once a week, study partner, go through a book together. It's not hard. Shne'emar, how do we know that it belongs to him? Shne'emar tzidkat amonai asa, God did Hashem's righteousness, umishpatav im Yisrael. What does it call the rules and the laws of Torah about Moshe? This pasuk said about Moshe, tzidkat amonai asa, he did God's righteousness, umishpatav, and his laws im Yisrael. His laws. The laws are attributed to him, because he gave it to them. Wild. Yeravam ben Nevat, says the Mishnah, it continues with the flip side of this coin. Yeravam ben Nevat hata, he sinned v'hetiyat harabim, and he caused the public to sin. Who's Yeravam ben Nevat? No. Who? He fought with the Ben Shel Shlomo. Ken. Yeravam ben Nevat became the alternate king of Israel. King David had a son, his king was Shlomo, King Solomon. Shlomo had many kings, and the Jews are not impervious to people who want power, who want wealth, who want to rule. So you have rebellions all throughout the Jewish story as well. And in the story of Rehavam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu splits the community, the rulership of Israel. And he allows Rehavam to lead the portion of Yehudah and Binyamin, the two tribes that were together. They were always together. And the other 10 tribes, all the rest of the Shvatim, were under the rule of Yeravam ben Nevat. And thus began a litany, a rulership of one crooked king after the other. Okay? So what did Yeravam do? Yeravam, he decides, 1 second, if the Jews from my countries, from my city-states, all the 10 tribes, if they go up to the Beit HaMikdash on the holidays, and I go with them, then the law is that everybody has to stand, all the kings must stand, all the people must stand in the Azara, in the courtyard of the temple, out of respect. The only person who's allowed to sit is the king of Israel. And true kings of Israel come from only which tribe? Yehudah. So the king running those two tribes would be the only king that was allowed to sit. Yeravam said, I'm going to go with my people there. He's going to sit, and I'm going to stand, because that's going to be the law. People will feel that my kingship is not as valid as his. I can't have that. So Yeravam places at all the parashat derachim, at all of the forks in the road, every road that led to Jerusalem, Yeravam ben Nevat instituted, he installed an idol. And he said, you're going to bring sacrifices to the temple, here's an altar, here's an idol. Sacrifice here instead. And he didn't let them go to Jerusalem. He caused, because of his hubris, the turning away of all of the Jewish people. And our rabbis tell us that prior to that deed, Yeravam was considered not just one of the most righteous Jews, but also one of the biggest Talmidei Chachamim, one of the biggest scholars. But as we've learned, unfortunately, time and time again, wisdom is not a shield against arrogance. Sometimes it is an aid to arrogance. Yeravam causes single-handedly the turning astray of all the Jewish people. But that is not the most shocking part of this. The most shocking part is that God comes to Yeravam and he offers him a truce. God says to Yeravam, return, repent. Ve'ani ve'ata uben Yishai, and you and I and Ben Yishai, the son of Jesse of Yeshai, who's that? David HaMelech. You and I and King David, Atayel Began Eden, Atayel Began Eden. We shall, meander. We will go touring through the Garden of Eden in Olam Haba. God was offering Yeravam to wipe his slate clean. And listen to the power of arrogance. Yeravam is tempted by the offer. You mean if I do teshuvah, if I remove the idols, if I bring the Jewish people back, it's not just going to start me at zero. I'm going to be together with you and King David, David HaMelech, Mashiach Hashem. Yeravam asks a question. He asks, in a certain sense, the only question for him. And with these two words, he loses his eternity. Yeravam says, Mi barosh. Who's first? Who walks first? Me or David? Not amazing? Mi barosh. Throw it all away.
So Rehoboam and Absalom, they were both like against their father?
Yeravam is not the son of King David. But there were many that were against their father in Navi, yes. I need you to hear that. Mi barosh. Doesn't matter that I'm in Gan Eden with God and with King David. Mi barosh. Now I want you to pay attention very carefully. Because in a certain sense, first of all, what Yeravam was saying no to in the spiritual world was something that he'd already said no to in the physical world. I don't care if I'm the king in the Hechal, in the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash. If he gets to sit and I stand, I'm out. What does Haman say? If everyone in the whole kingdom bows to me, V'chol ze eneno shoveh li, it's not worth it to me when I see Mordechai not bowing. So ultimately, Haman throws it all away for one person. If he can't have it all, he'd rather have nothing. That's the power of arrogance. But my friends, I want to share with you something which to me is so tragic. And if Shlomo Kalbach were here today, he'd be singing it to you. If we have any Kalbach fans in the house. Let's look again at what God said to Yeravam ben Nevat. He tells him, return, repent, Yeravam. Listen closely. Ve'ani, God says, and me. Ve'ata, and you. Uven Yishai, and the son of Yesha, Ishai, and David, the Tayil began Eden, will tour in Gan Eden. Who came first? Huh? After God.
Him.
Ani ve'ata uben Yishai. In God's intention, who was going to come first? Yeravam. Before King David. Because however much King David had done, Yeravam would have caused, think about what he would have done. We say in a place that a Baal Teshuvah stands, even a complete Sadiq doesn't stand. Why? Because a Sadiq knows only the good side. He doesn't have the temptation. He's not gone down that dark path. For a Baal Teshuvah to rise to those heights, he needs to travel double as far. He needs to work double as hard. Had Yeravam said yes, he would have been more than, closer than King David. But he lost it because of the question. Why am I sharing this? Because I think a lot of times we lose something because of the question. Oof. This is a rough one. Sorry. Who's coming? How much was lost because of that question in our society? Invited to an event? Who's coming? Who's going to be there? Shema Yisrael. How old? How much does he earn? How tall is she? How skinny is she? How old is she? You won't even meet. Sometimes the death of something is a question. You do this, I'm not going to do that because what happens if we, what happens if, what happens when, what this? There's a million questions always that we could ask on everything. But kol ha-mizakeh et harabim, en chet ba al yado. En chet ba al yado. You have to trust the process. You have to trust the process. Yeravam ben Nevat chata v'echti et harabim, chet harabim talui bo. All the mistakes of all those people and all their children, they're on him. Shne'emar al hatot Yeravam asher hata, for the sins of Yeravam that he sinned, v'asher hechti et Israel, and he caused Israel to sin. I must share with you. I think to myself a lot. I think a lot about this. You know, in the same way that we ascribe that running clock in Times Square to Moshe earlier, to a guy who sets up Hatzalah, all the lives that are saved, all the lives of the families that are saved because the primary caregiver didn't, got to the hospital in time, that running tally, that also exists in the negative. Person speaks Lashon Hara. It spreads throughout the community. You think about a post that you post, making fun of someone, even if it's all in good fun. It's unbelievable. The tally, right? So I think the Mishnah is asking us to ask ourselves really one strong question. And that one strong question is this the right thing? If it's the right thing, just do it. Is this the wrong thing? If it's the wrong thing, just do it. Just don't do it. Don't think to yourself about the possible good things that might come at. Just don't do it. There's too much at stake. That's what the Mishnah is teaching us. There's too much at stake. So Hashem should bless us to come across these great opportunities and to act fearlessly. Hashem should bless us to have eyes wide open when we're making these bad judgment calls because we're angry in the minute. I'll give you an example. I was in London and I was in terrible pain. I'd done something to I think it was my leg. I was on crutches. The pain was incredible. Anyway, I went to one hospital, and the way it works is in England, you can't just go to a doctor that you want. Before you go to a doctor, you have to get a referral to that doctor from another doctor. Otherwise, not only won't the National Health Service cover it, NHS, but your insurance, your private insurance also won't cover it because you haven't been referred who said you need a specialist. So you need to get that referral to the specialist before the insurance company will even allow you to go to the doctor you need. So you're dealing with a system which is really overwhelmed because it's being supported by the taxes of the people, by the way, which I also paid. They took it right out of my salary, right? And I go to this place, I'm like blinded from the pain when I'm driving. I probably shouldn't have even driven. But I was in so much pain and I was going from the place where it happened, I drove straight to the hospital. And when I get to the hospital, after this interminable wait, they finally call me and they said, "Oh, sorry, sir. You needed to go to another hospital." I was like, "What do you mean? Why can't they? I'm going to go to the..." "No, sorry, sir." I was like, "But it says on the website." They're like, "Oh yeah, we changed that." I was like, "And you didn't update the website? Go to the other hospital." Anyway, by now I'm like literally crying. I jump in the car, I drive to the other hospital, I get to the other hospital, I get to the desk I'm supposed to get to. The lady says to me, "I'm really sorry, sir. The desk you need just closed. You have to come back tomorrow." I was like, "But all these people are waiting and your website sent me to the wrong place. And now I'm here. Please could you just see me? I don't even need the services of the hospital. I just need someone to say to me that I actually need to have it checked out by a specialist," which I'm sure I do, which I actually did. "Sorry, sir." Computer says, "No, we close at 5. It's not 5 o'clock yet." "Yeah, but by the time you get the appointment, we might, I was so mad, I was so upset. I posted online, "Is there anyone that can help me with this rubbish system?" And someone respond, and people like, well, Rabbi, it's a free system. You don't like it, go back to America. I was like, well, technically it's not free if I'm paying for it. If I was unemployed, then I had no right to complain. If I am employed and I am making a good salary and a good part of that salary is going to the NHS, then it's not for free. And I deserve to be served by the system that I'm paying for. And when they make a mistake and they don't update the website and it's on them, then yes, they should make an exception and see someone long enough to be able to give them at least just a referral.
You're gonna go to the ER?
Anyway, for whatever reason, it wasn't possible. I don't even remember the details of the case anymore. I'm probably getting some of the details wrong. But it was roughly something like this. I get a private message from a good guy. And he says, "Rabbi," he says, "you're probably right. But the girl behind the counter is just following orders. It's not her fault, even if it's the system's fault. And people who look up to you as a rabbi, maybe they'll learn the wrong thing from this. Shoot the messenger." He sent it as a private message, not on the page. And I was man enough to say, you're right, I'm wrong. I was reaching out to find someone who could help me navigate the system, someone who had pull. But maybe I didn't need to put in any negativity to it. Maybe I just could have said, need some help. Can someone help me? I need to get an appointment somewhere for a referral for my foot. I'm in a lot of pain. Is there an excuse? Was I in pain? Was I let down? Did they do? Yes. But at the end of the day, you just put something out there. You know, what does the doctor or the nurse who works for peanuts in the system feel like when they're being slammed by a rabbi online? Even if you didn't call them out, even if you just said the NHS, even, you know, it's not nice to read. It was a wrong thing to do. You see what I'm saying? Especially in today's day and age, where the second anything goes anywhere, you know it will probably go everywhere. Let me say that again. In today's day and age, the second something goes anywhere, you sent it to your wife and kids on your family chat, it's gone. Then they put it on their school chat. Gone. It's now memed online for eternity. So we have to think about the unbelievable ramifications and the reach of our actions, because never in the history of time has any person in the world had the power of talking to the whole world in his or her hands like we have today. You don't have to be anything to speak loud enough for the whole world to listen today. You just have to have a juicy enough video of a woman called Karen who has one bad interaction and has now become the poster child. She has become the meme, the name. She is the joke of the world, to the point that when someone acts that way, what do you tell them? Don't be a Karen.
I mean, I've never said that, but I've heard.
But you see it? Who's the guy who made that video? Again, I'm not saying what she did was right. I'm saying, does she deserve what she got? That's in your hands. Hashem should bless us always to have the wisdom and the foresight and the patience to be able to make really great decisions.